Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to dive a little bit deeper into the 325IS project. You saw in the last video we pulled the front clip off and pretty much have full access to the front of the motor, and the goal is to pull the motor straight out with the transmission. So in order to further prep this to get out of the car without taking anything else with us that we don't want, we need to start pulling some harnesses and we need to start disconnecting some stuff underneath. It would be great by the end of this video to have everything ready as in terms of motor pulling preparation done. I just want it out of the way so I can get in here next weekend with the hoist and actually pull the motor out. So we got to move some harnesses. We got that harness, we got this one for the coil packs, we got the main harness from the DME, and we have some lines, some heater core lines, I believe. Probably end up pulling the manifold, given that the motor that I'm picking up will actually be needing this manifold, and we're probably gonna have to pull it because the other hoist point, you got one here, but the other hoist point is kind of underneath the manifold. You can't really get it with without pulling the manifold off. Alright, so I've said this before, but in case you're new here, I have no idea what the fuck I'm doing. I have never pulled a motor, never pulled a transmission, never swapped a motor, and never swapped a transmission, so this should be a fun one. So far, so good. So far, I've been pretty streamlined with the work. It's not giving me any problems, but this is where we get a little bit more complicated, and I will stress the importance of labeling anything and everything, just for me. So if you're doing this, even if you've pulled motors, I'm sure you're labeling things. But yeah, I cannot stress that enough. That's probably a lot of stuff I'll do off camera, so just keep in mind, while I'm doing this, I'm gonna be labeling everything that I can to help me when I put it back together so that I don't run into any problems and any confusion. I just want it to be able, once the motor's in here, be able to know where everything goes with labels. Now you saw in the last video, we actually kind of got, like I said, the whole front clip off, but we still got this harness hanging out here, and what I want to do is actually get it disconnected from this side so we can move it over to one side. It's not in the way when the motor actually has to come out. So we have a ton of sensors here, and I'll go over them real quick. We got this guy, this is for the washer fluid bottle or tank or whatever this is called. There's a sensor right here for the hood switch. We've got a horn connected back here. These are the headlights, and some of the headlight harness is a part of this. Notice I already labeled this. This is the radiator sensor. And then we have this guy down here, in which I think this is also for the headlight. I didn't label it. So anyways, we got a lot of stuff. What I'm going to do is start unhooking things one by one and label them, and then hopefully we'll be able to just move this whole harness over that way. Alright, so as you can see, we got the majority of this side ready to go. It's just this main harness that I need to find out where that goes, and we'll be able to pull that. And then there's one additional one that I will find out where that goes to. There's actually one directly down here connected to the it took me a second to realize what that was. I just had to look at what was actually connected to it. That is in fact an AC compressor, my dumb ass. Alright, so as you can see, we have everything nicely labeled here, this whole loom. But if you follow this back, we still got this guy, and this goes underneath here. I reach my hand under here, and you can feel it goes right into the firewall. So I have no idea where that's going to be in the firewall, but I was trying to avoid going into there altogether when I was first messing with this, so I ended up cutting, wait, wrong one. So I ended up cutting this. This is the washer sprayers. I'm probably going to delete this anyways, but I'm definitely not going to cut this harness. So, alright, so to be honest with you, I know that the main harness does go into the firewall, but I'm thinking maybe I'll have some better luck, some better access if I remove the ECU first. I don't know though, I'm not 100% sure. This needs to be dealt with anyways. This whole loom needs to come down. So I'm going to focus on getting this disconnected, and I'll worry about this in a bit. the ECU. That's that. Let's put that back in there for a second. We'll go ahead and put the door back on once I figure out what's going on over here. Alright, disregard everything I just said. This, I was trying to figure out where this went. I'm like, man, where the fuck did it go? Thinking that the only way to get to it was behind the glove box. But it was actually like intertwined into the radiator support harness. So now, actually, we're free. Now we're free. This is this side out, completely out. But it was just like wrapped up in there, and it made it look like it was one big old thing, but I didn't inspect it close enough. Alright, what's up guys? It is the next day. It's about 11:30 a.m. I'm going to work with the garage door closed for a little bit just because it's going to be really hot today, so if I can keep all the cool air in as long as possible, I will. So I'm going to try and do that. I'll try and set up some lighting so you guys can see a little bit better, but I'm going to continue what I did yesterday and get some harnesses and some stuff labeled before I remove it all, because there's just too many things that need to be labeled, or too many things that I wouldn't be able to remember if I didn't label them. So yesterday I got the main harness separated from like the core support, so that's completely free. And I'm gonna continue getting the harnesses disconnected off of this motor. I have the main harness from the ECU and the DME disconnected on at least the side where the DME and the ECU actually connects. And then this side we'll have to figure out what to do there. I'm not sure what actually comes off with that, but I need to look into that a little bit more. I still need to go back and label a little bit more of the harness just because I'm feeling a little bit uncertain with the amount of labels. I didn't really label every single thing, and it would be nice to probably just have every single thing labeled that I can remember at this point. And from there, once we have everything labeled and everything removed, I would like to I'm probably gonna have to pull the manifold. I believe I said that before, so I'll probably do that today as well. Not that bad, especially because this manifold's going on the new motor. And then I'll probably rebuild the injectors as well, just while they're out. And we don't really run into anything like that because this car sat for a really long time, so the fuel system is really important to me as in terms of refreshing that. So I will probably get that, rebuild those injectors. There's a kit, I believe on Race German, I think it's who sells it. So I'll probably look into that and grab that because you can rebuild them with all the seals and the little gaskets or whatever, and just use the existing injectors instead of buying new ones. So yeah, I'm gonna label a little bit of stuff off camera, and don't freak out because I've pretty much labeled everything here, and I can go over labels and everything afterwards, but as of now I'm gonna just take some time off camera and label everything that I can see. I'm even gonna label stuff that's obvious, like cruise control, so for whatever reason, I'm probably gonna delete cruise control, to be honest with you, but there's a few things I'd like to get rid of, but as of now I'm going to label every single thing that I can, even if I know exactly what it is and feel like I have no doubt that I wouldn't remember it. I'm going to label it anyways. So I'll get back to you guys when everything is a little bit more labeled. Alright, you can see we've made some progress here. This is completely separated from the chassis on this side. So as far as the passenger side, we're done. There's nothing else that we need to do, to my knowledge. And then I don't think I filmed this, but there was this line for the AC system right here that goes on the power steering, or the AC compressor. This is separated. I think I did film this, I can't remember. But yeah, this line is off from the compressor. The only other thing on the passenger side that's actually holding this to the chassis would be this chassis ground here. You can see it hanging out. It's not focusing on it. There, come on. That chassis ground. So I'm gonna actually disconnect it at the chassis so it just stays here. I'm referencing the DBO video in case anybody's wondering, but there's not really anything that's that in depth. So I'm hoping that if you're looking to remove your engine, this video might help you a little bit more in case you've never done this before. It doesn't skim over like the nitty gritty. So I'm gonna get that disconnected. That's a 13. I'm gonna disconnect it from the frame rail. From there, we're gonna work towards this side. I already disconnected the X20, and there's a couple other things that need to come out here. So I'll look into that and figure it out. Again, I labeled even the silliest things like cruise control just in case. But I believe this, to actually disconnect this harness fully, I need to get this from the fuse block. So I need to pop some relays, I guess. I'm not sure. I'm gonna watch the video and then I'll get back to you and let you know what I did. Alright, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull the I'm gonna pull the MAF and then I'll pull this intake elbow boot. I'll actually pull this off with the MAF just to keep less parts and less pieces to worry about, but there's something by where the MAF connects underneath it. I think that's a charcoal canister. I literally don't know what that is, but yeah, whatever it is, it needs to come off. So in order to continue to like separate the harness from this side, man, that elbow is really on there. Yeah, so whatever the fuck this is, I'll actually leave this on here for a second until I figure out what this is. But the throttle body and stuff isn't going to come off because, as I said previously, we're going to have to pull that manifold. And that is not, oh, you know what that is? I think that's a purge valve. Pretty sure that's what that's called. So yeah, that needed to come off. So this was hanging out behind that charcoal canister. So yeah, there's this. So we're like one step closer actually to getting rid of the harness. So I think the last thing I have to do is actually pull from the fuse block. So we're gonna head there next. So actually the final thing that looks like needs to be done on this side of the wiring harness would be the fuse box. Fuse block, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Don't know how these things come out though. Alright, so we're gonna pull these three here. I don't know what they are or what they do, but I'm pretty sure they gotta come out. However that works. Is that one? I'm just wedging the screwdriver against it. There they are. And the very last thing. Oh, that's part of the motor. Or that goes to the motor. The last thing would be, there's like a little positive cable where that's what it looks like for the fuse block. So I'm gonna pull that off. That is, let's make sure that's actually a 13. Okay, it's on there hella tight. Okay, now that's off. Thank God. So now, to my knowledge, the harness is completely separated from the chassis, and the only thing that's actually connected to the chassis is the motor with the motor mounts. The only other thing is those heater core lines that we'll have to deal with, but I'm not going to worry about that until we're going to pull the actual motor. It's just rather worry about less things and keep it as organized as possible, but I'm going to continue to label just because, and I will get back to you when we do the more, arguably in my opinion, the more difficult part. Alright, so this is the get track that I had a buddy pick up for me. The mileage is unknown and I didn't know what car it came out of, but I just looked up the VIN on MDecoder, and what's kind of cool is that it came out of a 1995 325i that was also Alpine white, and this just happens to be a 95 325i with the Alpine white. Only difference is that was a sedan, but it's kind of cool that it didn't come out of a 318 or something. So I don't know what the mileage is. I literally don't know how this is going to be in the car, but yeah, I don't have the detent pin tools, so I'm not rebuilding it anyway. So right now, I didn't film it, but I pulled the exhaust off, and luckily I didn't break any studs off the manifold. Just sprayed it with some PB Blaster in advance. So I got the exhaust out, and luckily the dude I bought it from wasn't running a muffler, so all I had to do was drop the mid-pipe section up to the headers. And again, nothing broke. That's never happened on any E36 I've ever worked on, so just coincidentally it worked out with this. What I'm doing next, I've already showed it. We got the whole harness. I got it all disconnected from the actual chassis of the car. But what I'm going to do next, given that I will be trying and attempting to pull the motor out with the transmission, I want to be able to hoist it from both points. And luckily, or unfortunately, the other hoist point is below the manifold. So the manifold has to come off regardless, because we need this for the M52. We're going to use the M50 and M50 swap it, so hopefully we'll get some power gains with the M52. But right now, I'm pulling off the fuel rail. I pulled out the injectors and these things look disgusting. These are like super old and gross. I'm gonna separate this because you can't take this part of the harness with you. It's still connected to the main chassis harness. So once I get the rail out, I think this is the fuel pressure regulator as well. So I'm not sure if we're gonna need that, but it'd be nice to have the rail and everything. Basically, all this stuff has to come off. It's a little bit of a pain now because I want the least amount of like things taken apart as the motor comes out. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and crack away at this, pull the manifold off. I'm not gonna film. I might film this. I'll film actually pulling the manifold off, but it's as simple as disconnecting your fuel lines. So wherever it went, this one. So you disconnect your fuel line. It's just a flathead, and you can do it at the front and the back. If your car is still operable enough to like crank, you can pull the fuel pump fuse and try and start the car so you can get the fuel out of the system. But if you didn't do that, it's just gonna spray a bunch of fuel, and you can soak it up with towels, get it on your hands, or get it in your drain pan. I did all three. So yeah, fuel, there's no more fuel on the rail, and this is separated. Realistically, I could just leave this, but these injectors are gonna be replaced from injectors I have from a part out. I'll rebuild them. These are going in the trash. I can't use these. And then, yeah, I'll get back to you guys when the manifold's ready to come off. All right, so these are the injector clips. These are a total pain in the ass, and they bend and they break, so you can't really reuse them. You're gonna have to order new ones when you reinstall your injectors. So getting these clips is just, there's like not really a rhyme or reason on like how to do it. You can see I got it, but it's, you just bend it inevitably. I'm sure you could get it off without it, but there's such a pain in the ass to get off. It's kind of a poor design. It's in the car and you're underneath it, it's gonna be like 10 times as hard. So if you can just flip it around, but you can see like all these clips in here are already bent. Like they're never gonna, like that one's mad bent. So anyways, I'm working on getting these off. I'll separate them. I'll pull the injectors off. I'm gonna put all the injectors off in a little baggie along with the clips and stuff. I don't think I'll ever use them again, but I have to find the other injectors that I have, and that's gonna be a whole thing in itself. But I've probably been trying to get these clips off. It's been like 10 or 15 minutes, and I'm working towards my last one. So anyways, the rail's off. I'm actually not gonna take the injectors off because I'm gonna reuse the rail, but I won't use the injectors. I'll just deal with this later. Again, I don't know if I need this, and then I need to go back and find the lines that just popped off of this because I want to label them. I totally just lost the vacuum for the fuel regulator and the feed line. And there's probably fuel all behind the motor right now because it fell and like recessed back into there. But as far as pulling the manifold, I won't film the actual, well, maybe we'll film a little bit. But as far as pulling the manifold, it's dumb easy now that you have the rail off. You have bolts down here in these little channels, if this makes sense, so you can just get an extension. I think they're 10s. So you have bolts here. For the manifolds, there's one like in the real far back, and then just pull the throttle body off. You don't have to take all this off like as pieces. You can just separate it over here, or actually I might have to because it's a traction control car, but I don't know, I haven't pulled one of these off with traction control. But yeah, you can just disconnect it. It's 4, and you can just pull it from the manifold and just deal with this later. And then the only other thing is if you follow, you'll see these brackets. There's just 2, and you just need to get an extension and find the bolt, and it's way down there. But yeah, there's just 2 bolts, there's 2 brackets, so it's secured on this side and then with the brackets on that side, and it should pull straight up, and then you're done. The manifold's off, and we should have access to that second hoist point that we'll need when we actually pull the motor out. All right, so we are ready to pull the manifold. As I mentioned before, you have a bracket right underneath the manifold here, and then like one farther, kind of closer to the dipstick. You can take off the throttle body. We did have to separate this little bracket, and in that case it was wherever those went through. What, right? Where did those go? These 2 little diagonal things. So these were sitting on the throttle body. Well, I'm not gonna show you, but you got that little bracket here. So that kind of went in there diagonally. So you have these 2, and you can access those 4, because once you move this, you have access to the 4 bolts, and I screwed them back into the manifold just so I don't have to remember where they go. So the manifold's ready to come off. When you pull these manifolds, there's a ton of vacuum shit underneath there, like just like a ton. So when it comes off, it's not going to come off that far, and now that we have this whole chassis engine harness sitting on top of it, it's going to be a total fun project, but it should come right off. Yeah, see, that's going to be a pain. Okay. Oh fuck, I just watched like a good amount of dirt go right in there. Yeah. Oh, okay, so, wow, that looks horrible under there. If you can see right under here, we have so much vacuum running that's kind of trapping this manifold from getting free. So what we're gonna have to do now is kind of angle this thing up. I'm gonna get under there with a flathead, and I'm gonna start disconnecting some lines. I'll probably try and grab my phone, grab a few photos just in case, because there's so many vacuum lines in here and they're all kind of similar, and it's easy enough, I'm sure, to, you know, figure out where everything goes, and you can just trace it, especially when the manifold's off, but it's easier to just label everything as soon as it comes off. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna pull this manifold. This is about as far as it's letting me go. I removed the crankcase ventilation here, and we just don't have that much room because there's a ton of shit under here. It's everything vacuum, all the idle control valve stuff. The crankcase ventilation hose is down here. You have like a bunch of stuff. So everything's on the underside of the manifold, and it's actually pointed out like towards where the throttle body's at, so it's kind of a bitch. But now that it's loose, we have plenty of room to get in there with our hands. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this off, and I'll get back to you when the manifold's completely off the car. He's dismounting the fuel line here. And I feel like I have never pulled a manifold where the line's actually mounted to the manifold, but maybe I'm just tripping. Take that, I don't want to send her back where she went. Or drop it. Fuck. Alright, well, manifold is off. This is to the, I'm pretty sure this goes to the fuel pressure regulator. Yeah, I totally fumbled the bag and dropped that bolt. Anyways, manifold's off, and you can see there's your second hoist point directly under the manifold. Right there. So we'll need that, but it's pretty awesome that they fucking engineered a motor. Well, I guess you're not supposed to be pulling the motor all the time, but yeah, this is hanging out under the manifold. So that's the only reason we had to pull that off just now. Alright guys, I have pretty much gotten everything out and everything disconnected that I need to, and I'm pretty sure I got like the best coverage that I could have possibly gotten film-wise for you guys. So if you have any questions, or if you have anything that I left out that maybe I could shed some light on, you can always feel free to DM me on Instagram. I'm pretty active on there and I can help you out. But I've gotten pretty much everything disconnected. We'll go over it real quick. Alright, the neighbors are playing some copyright music, so I'm going to try and do my best to isolate that. But as you can see, the manifold is off. Like I said, we're going to need that, but I also pulled that for that hoist point that you guys saw earlier. The actual chassis harness is completely disconnected from this side of the car as well as that side of the car. We disconnected everything from the fuse block. Again, and I had pulled the manifold, so this harness is part of that main harness. That's disconnected from the fuel rail. Fuel rail's sitting down there. These fuel lines, I don't think those have to move, but if they do, it's super easy. Everything I tried to label down here, but I kind of put everything back together that doesn't need to be dealt with initially or right now. So like this is going to be deleted. I'm going to do the ASC delete, but as of now I'd rather just put it back together so I know how everything goes. That is kind of how I've been operating so far. So as far as getting this out, I'll film one more video on the motor prep pulling, or maybe I'll include it with pulling the motor, and that'll be a next video. So I have to go and disconnect some stuff with the transmission. It's an automatic transmission, so there's a little bit more stuff to deal with. But I also deleted the, or disconnected, at least didn't delete it, but I disconnected the transcooler that you guys saw here earlier. That was easy. It was just 110 mil, and I just drained it and you know, let it drain into the pan. But really, this thing is ready to go. I don't want to speak too soon, but I do want to just say, if you're like intimidated or nervous pulling a motor, you know, I can't speak for putting one back in, but really as a first time, you know, motor in preparation to pull it, it's not as bad as I really expected it to be. It's a lot of stuff to unplug and a lot of stuff that you label, but as long as you do all that, you should be pretty golden. Who knows, I may be looking back at this clip in a little bit and going, I can't believe I said that, and posted it on the internet, because it might be a lot tougher. Honestly, so far, I've done way worse jobs on E36s. Way worse. This is not that hard. As long as you label everything, you know where stuff goes, not bad at all. So let that be, I guess, some motivation to you if you're contemplating doing this, or maybe you found an old BMW with a blown motor. Just keep in mind, I don't really think pulling it is as bad as I anticipated, so maybe people will feel the same way. With that all being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of the 325IS build. I got a ton done today, like a very good amount. I'm sure people can get this done way faster than I did, but again, first time doing it, so I'm feeling very achieved, very accomplished, and yeah, I'm excited to pull the motor. This means the motor should come out next weekend, and really the only limitation with that is the hoist. I would like to pull it tomorrow, but I'm going to pick up the motor tomorrow, so that might be a separate video as well. Anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Stay tuned for the rest of this build, because it is officially going down and there's no turning back now. So see you guys in the next one. Peace.